folks, her colleagues, about what possibilities might be there to keep it going. I don't know where it's kind of up in the air right now as to what its future is. You know, depending on how we find the funding. Anything else in that identified goals that you want me to talk about?
Les, I got a question.
Okay.
As long as you were talking on funding there a little bit, you know, last year there was a lot of legislative increase in probation.
Sure.
How did that affect your office, or didn't it find its way as far as funding sources?
Well,
They're
it didn't
significant.
really, yeah, it didn't affect anything in terms of decreasing.
Yeah,
But there's no money to make it. So I have money in 2 other districts to create positions. I can't do that in Meeker County because I don't have the money based on the funding formula. You know, we created a new position over in Wright County this year, and we did the same thing up in Douglas, but we don't have the additional funds to do that here. And we've supported that. So if you understand how positions work, our direct court agent has been in a temp unclassified position for the last, well, that position has been that way for the last 8 years. We haven't been able to make it a permanent position, which makes it difficult to fill and difficult to keep people in. You know, in the event that that position goes away, they don't have any other recourse. So that's just been kind of a pain in the butt all along, even outside of the current funding formula. But as you probably understand, I mean, you were kind of part of that, right? That
Yeah,
funding formula is
yeah.
based on numbers, and that's part of why we're in this position, when they look at the numbers and how that comes together.
well, that's why I would ask the question. I didn't, you know,
Yeah.
when you're working on it from the other side and you get increase in funding, it's like, well,
Correct.
that's, you know,
Well, you know,
everybody claps their hands and that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
But then you don't know exactly how that falls down through the formula, and that's what I was.
Overall, there were 20 new positions created in the Department of Corrections in this last fiscal year. But that funding formula, you know, it's above my pay grade, but my understanding is prior to this additional money, there really wasn't a solid budget or a solid way to know necessarily where funds were going. And so they structured it to be able to understand that part of it, and that's the funding formula, and that's where we ended up with, without really knowing what the
Sure.
would look like until you get there. So.
Yep.
It talks about pre-sentence diversion and other services, pretrial diversion and other services. We have a pretrial supervision program when the judge orders someone on pretrial services here in Meeker County. We have a color wheel that folks report to when that is part of their pretrial supervision that's been ordered. So that's monitoring your analysis. Another big part of our pretrial program is to make sure that we keep track of folks and that they show up for court dates and those kind of things. David has a caseload, I think, now of around 70 people or so that are on pretrial supervision here in Meeker County. So we're just trying to make sure that they go through the process, make sure they stay in the process, make sure that we keep it safe and everybody else safe around them if they're, you know, if they're showing that they have public safety issues, and we're going to react to those. The diversion and other services, I don't know, kind of putting you on the spot, Brandon. Do you want to talk about diversion? That's mostly your office, right?
Yeah, so there's a diversion program that we have for truancy, as well as for minor infractions. And so there's an opportunity for kids to keep it off their records for the first time. Some of the lower level offenses, I think, before 18 and 20-year-olds as well. And so there's an opportunity we have. It's not a robust program like I'd like to see. And so that is something that is on one of our goals, is to really look at how can we improve diversionary programs, holding these people and children, juveniles, younger adults accountable while also maintaining that public safety.
Thanks, Brandy. Juvenile supervision is also offered here in Meeker County. When there are issues brought to the attention, often law enforcement's involved and makes a decision whether or not an arrest should occur, so probable causes kind of things. Once the law enforcement's made that decision, then often they're referred to folks with the Department of Health and Human Services, to make a sort of a pre-screening placement assessment as to what should happen next. Once we have convictions, juveniles are placed on probation and then are supervised, similar to our adult population in terms of risk and needs. We have what's called a YLS, Youth LSCMI. Our risk and needs tool is called LSCMI, level of case management intervention, and we have a youth level of that we use to determine those kind of things for our juvenile probation. Folks placed on juvenile probation. It does talk about here about the rest of the juvenile and how law enforcement makes that determination as to whether a juvenile should be arrested and then the things that happen next. Sheriff, do you want to talk anything about juvenile arrest or how that happens in your office?
So the juvenile arrests juvenile arrested for serious crimes, assaults, things like that, we can't really leave them. I think our issue right now, juvenile arrest, is finding a facility, and now we're finding facilities who won't even take kids unless we have a contract, and we don't have a contract with anybody, so that's gonna be a bigger issue as we move forward here.
Yeah, and I think there is a committee actually at the state level that's aware of that issue, because it's not just a problem in Meeker County, it's a problem across the state, and I do think they're trying to come up with some solutions, but it does make things very difficult when we have those types of situations where it's not safe to leave the child in the community, and then finding a place to put the child that is safe is difficult at this point. Safe schools. It is a committee that meets on a regular basis. It includes the Department of Corrections, all of the school officials in several counties, as well as law enforcement. It's just kind of a discussion about how we keep things safe in our schools and what needs are there to continue that safe environment. That meets, I think, on a monthly basis. We talked about treatment court already. We have the men's domestic violence program that's been in operation here in Meeker County since 2013. The domestic violence program is co-facilitated. It is a Duluth curriculum, which was put together in Duluth, Minnesota back in the 1980s. It is a cognitive-based intervention, but it looks at beliefs, it looks at attitudes, it looks at choices, puts all those kind of together and helps people sort of re-examine the reason they've made some of the choices that they've made. Decision Points is a cognitive-based intervention as well. That is designed similar to what I just talked about with domestic violence. Decision Points is held from 1 to 3. The curriculum, you do Decision Points. You want to talk a little bit more about what that looks like?
Yeah, so our Decision Points group is an open group in that we teach 4 lessons and we teach them kind of on repeat, and a person doesn't graduate the program until they've graduated each lesson. So it's not you show up one week, good, you're good to go. You have to take the material, go home, come back with your homework, show us that you kind of incorporate that into your life, and then present it to the group, and at that point then you can move on. So it takes about 2 or 3 times per lesson to move on to the next one. In Decision Points and in all our cognitive groups, what we really are talking about is the thought, feeling, action link, where we think about if our thoughts and our feelings lead us into a behavior, and if we can somehow readdress our thoughts and our feelings and think about things in a slightly different way, we can have a less risky behavior or a less risky outcome. So that kind of is the core of what that group is about, and really the core of what all our cognitive groups are about.
Thanks, Willie. So then GABS Court is a court that was designed by Judge Beckman. Frustrations with the Rule 20 clients have been found to be incompetent to stand trial. There's been some legislative pass that isn't fully in place here in Meeker County yet. There will be eventually what we call a forensic navigator that will work with these clients. The purpose of the work is to either find them competent to stand trial or incompetent and get the charges dismissed. And currently, so the SCAPS court kind of serves as that forensic navigator. It's a combination of the county attorney's office, Department of Health and Human Services as well as Department of Corrections. So, when a person's been found to be incompetent, the Department of Health and Human Services will refer to services and work with the individual to come to some place where they feel like maybe this competency has been reached or otherwise, and Department of Corrections then basically does the supervised piece. If the judge has ordered supervision conditions for these people, the Department of Corrections will oversee those supervision conditions. So it's a combination. Court meets, I think, every 3 months, and the judge would expect for the county attorney's office, probation, and DHS all to show up and give sort of a report of where things are going, how things are going.
May I jump in last? It's not DHS, it's Meeker County Health
Sorry.
and Human Services, so local, not state.
Not DHS, not state level, but Meeker County. You're right. And so community work service, as you all know, STS is no longer offered in Meeker County. So the way that works now is if community work service is ordered, the supervising agent will work together with the client to come up with a place where the community work service can be completed. That will be approved as well by the agent to make sure that it fits the nonprofit piece that community work service needs to be done in, and the agent then will provide the document tools to that area to document the hours, and then collect those hours once the hours have been completed, and we'll file those with the court to show that that person's been compliant with the community work service hours that were ordered. We talked a little bit about the diversion program already and the truancy programs, narrative court intervention, evidence-based practice, which we talked about. The goal here, and a lot of this right here in this page, on page 11, outlines that. It's gonna look the same here in Meeker County as it does in other counties. Talks about the use of validated risk assessments. I talked about the LSCMI. We also use the DVI here in Meeker County, as well as I can't think of that other assessment. It's a domestic assessment.
The ODERA.
The ODERA, yeah, correct, the ODERA. Those are all used here. These are gonna help us understand risk needs that I've talked about already, things that we wanna focus on for people in supervision, as well as make recommendations to the court for supervision. Case management we talked about, those vary in Meeker County. Each client works on an individual case plan which is based on those needs. So I'll do our initial sort of assessment, get to know the client a bit, we do our own feedback that leads us into a case plan that tells specifically what areas we're gonna target and how we're gonna target those. Talked about addressing responsivity, such as mental health, housing, gender, and culturally specific. We'll work with all the stakeholders here in Meeker County to help to address any of those issues. We do have some substance abuse providers here in town, as well as some folks that can help out with some housing assistance if we need, and some mental health services as well, and those are all used and targeted. Caseload sizes is one of the areas that we're constantly trying to have an impact on. If we're gonna do this kind of work with people, we need to have the time and ability to be able to do that. Caseload sizes need to be reduced, and as we add additional agents, and I just told you I didn't have the money in Meeker to do that, but as we add additional agents, it's allowed us to bring those caseload sizes down. We're always gonna continue to try to find ways to bring caseloads down. Another way we can do that is having an early discharge practice. So our early discharge in the past has been predicated on completion of court-ordered conditions. Now we're more court-ordered conditions are still important and they still need to be completed. We're also more focused on how people have invested in our cognitive-based interventions, some of the stuff that Willie talked about, that will help bring about change. So what we're really doing is attempting to change a worldview. When we change the way people think, we change the behavior, and that's our focus. So those two, the change that we've seen are gonna drive more of our early discharge recommendations than just and only just completion of court order conditions. So that's another way we can work on that.
Mr. Chair, I just have one question.
Yep.
So when you say early discharge, give me an example.
Well, currently, we do have policy with the Department of Corrections that sort of outlines some of that. That's gonna be changing over the years. Right now, it's at least half the time, at least a year, violation free, no new conditions or no new offenses. Yeah, kind of those things right now.
So,
We're gonna add, what's that?
go ahead.
Yeah, we'll add to that,
Okay.
these cognitive-based interventions that we've asked people to participate in, and whether or not they have participated in them or not. If you make a choice to not participate in, you're not gonna get early discharge. So you have, you're gonna have to, it's sort of an incentive, it's incentivized to say, if you take the time to, to involve yourself in these interventions and we see the change happening, we'll consider early discharge. If not, early discharge is off the table.
Do we have any figures on early discharges, how many come back, or, and does this early discharge, if I've been picked up 3 times for something
Yeah.
and put on probation 3 times, do I still have an opportunity for early discharge? I'm just curious.
So the latest data that I have on recidivism, or that is people that are reoffended once
Yep.
they've completed supervision, I think comes from 2019. And actually, Meeker County is pretty good in that area. I think our percentage is around 93, and the state percentage is 86. So, and then of course, you gotta remember when you base that on, is it just new offenses, that kind of thing. But I think that's all they looked at in that particular study, was to find out how many people had actually committed a new crime. And I don't know if they delineated between felony, gross misdemeanor, misdemeanor, for sure either. But that was the last figures that I was presented.
Thank you.
Moving on, so the last page, 12 here, this page just talks about how this is accomplished within the setting with each agent. 4-step process it talks about, which just basically says, it outlines how a probation appointment happens. Starts from sort of an introduction, we lead into sort of the body and talk about the specific areas that we're working on. So it's not just a, how's it going, how things get at home. They're gonna be focused on the need area that we've identified and provided homework and things of that nature to bring back and discuss with the agent. And then we have how victims are dealt with. The pretrial works with Meeker County Attorney's Office and victims advocates regarding the MINPAT. Understanding how victims view no contact orders, residency exclusion. Victims are given an opportunity to present a impact letter at the time of the PSI as to how the offense that was done against them has impacted their lives. That's all included in the information given to the court. A lot of the rest of this is just sort of outlining populations, budgets, types of correctional services, which fees are imposed, county supervision fees. These all come from that new funding formula. It's not my area of expertise. If you want to look at them, if you have questions, I'll do my best to answer, but that's pretty much what I have for today. Any other questions about what we talked about today?
Mr. Chair, I just, while we're talking about it, I have a question for Brandy. When you charge a crime, does the victim have input into how you're charging, or that's just strictly, you don't listen, or, do you know what I'm asking?
Charging decisions are left up to the prosecutor, so
So-
city attorney and county attorney.
Doesn't have any effect on you?
However, when we are reviewing charges, we may take into consideration the victim's involvement and input. However, we are cautious when doing that because oftentimes if you're in a domestic violence relationship, I will make it very clear, our office will make it very clear that the county attorney's office is charging these and that the victim is not. And so that they're not having any sort of additional retaliation. So,
Yeah, I kind of appreciate that, because sometimes victims of spousal abuse or any abuse are hesitant, right? So you take that out of their hands, obviously.
correct. However, statute requires us to communicate all negotiations and resolutions and give them notice of all hearings. So they have the right under statute, and if we violate that, then we could essentially be in trouble. There's a Office of Justice, they actually will reach out to us and say, hey, we received a complaint from a victim. Did you follow through with this process? We will have to show the documentation and then there's no violation. But it is and we have a crime victim advocate for that very reason. And she is kept very busy communicating with victims to make sure. And they don't always agree. We have to communicate. But just because they don't agree, we have to then evaluate and use our discretion to determine the best interest of justice.
It's still your decision.
Correct.
Thank you.
one thing on the county level for the goals and stuff, how many times is the advisory board planning on meeting? Are they gonna meet quarterly?
Quarterly.
Because I think communication's probably the key part
I
of
agree.
this local level, making sure the sheriff, county attorney, judge is all on board, cause you can throw goals down, but if you don't meet and talk about them on how you're improving, it doesn't mean anything.
Agree 100%. And yeah, we, as an advisory board, we agree to meet quarterly.
Okay, is that current practice, or has
It's
that
in
always
here.
been?
That's in here.
Okay, so this is a new thing instituted. Great to hear that.
Yep.
Steve, you serve on that?
Yeah, I sat in on it. And I would just, I mean, I kind of felt a little bit like a fly on the wall, if you will, because you had Brandy and the judge and the sheriff and Health and Human Services in here, Paul, and you know,
Don't forget Andrew, he might,
and Andrew
his
was
feelings
there.
might
Was
get
he
hurt.
there?
I was terribly offended, Steve. that you-
Like I said, I was
He was
just a
another
fly on the
fly.
wall.
He was the other fly.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you had the people that actually work with
Well
the
said
clients.
politically,
Yeah.
Randy. On the
That
head.
said it.
The people that actually have to work with clients were in the room putting this together, so I
Sure.
mainly observed, and, I think the quarterly meetings and the collaboration are the key pieces to keep it. Cause it's a fluid document, things are gonna change, the legislation's gonna change, I mean, all the time, so I mean, I think it was well thought out. So, Litchfield PD must have had some input in this too as well, so I mean, Indian Valley I see, so I mean, Public Defender's Office, there's a lot of people in the room that have a lot more expertise in this area than I do, so. Thought it was well put together.
So, Mr. Chair, it's a little disappointing. Over the years since I've been commissioner, I look more at preventive now than I used to. It was like, no, just cut it, but, so it's a little disappointing to hear that there's a funding gap for drug court when that seems to be very successful, isn't it, Brandy?
Yeah, the recidivism rate, it seems to be better than without those resources.
So I'm always puzzled how we decide what we're gonna fund and how, and not fund, I guess. Just-
And the public defenders has withdrew about 2 years ago, so we've had to contract with
I
the
know.
court-appointed attorney, so the state funding is a serious concern, and it's extremely disappointing.
Do we legislate for more, Andrew, or AMC?
Drug court is not something that I've heard discussed specifically, Steve, in
No.
up there. But
No, more, the whole probation funding was a major deal
Right.
last year.
Yeah.
We had a work group on that. Yeah, as far as drug court itself.
I remember when I first became a commissioner, every meeting I went to, that's all they talked about, and when Brandy decided to start it, and now they don't fund it. It's just hard for me to wrap my brain around, but I don't have to, I guess. It's,
I'm impressed you remember at the beginning when you became commissioner.
thank you, Danny. I don't remember everything, but.
But really, what everybody wanted to happen was that, it would be fully taken over by DOC. And for 8 years, I tried it 2 years ago, it didn't go through. And I'm not really sure what the issue with that is, but it's just never been. So what's happened is DOC's provided, about 2/3 of the funding, and the other third's been provided by the court grant. But the court grant's gonna end as
Right.
well. And so it's just, yeah, I mean, it's not to say that drug court is for sure gone. It's being discussed right now to try and come up with ways to save it, because everybody does feel like it's been successful and that, it is a needed part of supervision. Just have to wait and see what happens, I guess.
Yeah, I know.
Judge Beckman has asked me to just kinda hang in for a bit
Sure.
while she has her discussions with her colleagues and then go from there.
And I know it's put a lot of extra work on the county attorney's office too, so to see it go this way is kind of disappointing, so.
Mr. Chair, on the funding, is this one of those cases where Meeker County's not big enough? A little bit too small, are we on the edge, or are we tied in with counties you spoke about, right? Of course, we know the size there, we know the size of Douglas County.
Right.
We're not their size,
Yeah, that's what happens when you base on numbers.
so there's no, it's all numbers, all number driven.
It's all numbers. as far as I understand, and that's where they put together. So when you come up with the formula, you know what it's gonna look like until you actually put it into action. And that's what happened. I mean, it's crazy because I think, I was 130,000 to the good over in, Wright, and similar in Douglas, and then 50,000 the whole year. And it's just based on numbers.
And that's numbers of folks on probation.
Correct.
Correct, okay. So it's not population.
No, no, it's not population, it's numbers under.
So we have
Yeah.
more, so is the percentage of people on probation compared to I mean, how do they, is that how it is?
Yeah, it's so much, like, the formula is like $2.40 per person per day,
Okay,
something like that.
okay.
You know, like I said, that's kind of above my pay grade, but that's my understanding.
Mr. Chair.
Yep. Julie?
You mentioned here that there's a community work service option. Is that an option for an individual, or do they have to be ordered by the court?
They'd have to be ordered by the court. We have to have the court order in order to do the community work service for the liability issues.
Okay,
So if, for instance, someone wanted the option to work off a fine, then we would go back and ask the court if that would be permissible, if they would order that.
okay, so that is somewhat still an option. We used to have that program here in Meeker. And then, now when I saw you mentioned it here, I was happy to see that that is still an option
Yeah, it
for an
still is.
individual. Okay,
It doesn't look quite the same as an STS group would look, but it's still an option where we can provide services to nonprofit organizations here in Meeker County.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you, that was interesting.
Thank you.
All right.
So what we're looking for is a vote to pass it on to the commissioner's office if that's acceptable to all the commissioners.
Mr. Chair, I'd move to approve the Correction Service Comprehensive Plan.
Motion by Schmidt, looking for a second.
I'll second that.
Second by Bredesen. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thanks, guys.
Everybody have a
Thanks.
great day.
You bet.
Yep.
All right.
Side of Jack.
Greg Schultz, land use.
Jack with the cane.
Morning, Greg Schultz, Land Use Director. This morning, I've got 3 items for the agenda. First one is a IUP for a mining washing located in southeast quarter of section 4, township 120, range 30, or city township. This is Les Loft's pit. It's been in existence since 2011. It's gonna be, when this is finished, he's gonna be permitting 9.4 acres of a 43-acre parcel. It's north of the Crow River. It's gonna be using, this one's different than the previous 2017 permit a little bit, and then he's gonna incorporate washing of aggregate materials at the site. It's gonna be using about approximately 9,000 gallons a week, he's estimating. Everything else is pretty much gonna be the same on the site as it's been since 2011. It's gonna go further to the north. It's already on the south side, it's gonna go further to the north on the property. Expand out that direction.
Greg, what size is the pit now? Do you know?
So it's about 4 acres,
Okay,
I think is where it's at now,
okay.
3.2.
But the parcel itself is 43.
43, yep, exactly.
And he plans to expand it to 9.4 acres of mining.
Eventually, yep, he only wants to take out about 5,000 yards approximately. It's a very small operation compared to other pits, it's just as needed by neighbors and whatnot, I suppose that are gonna come and get gravel, he'll supply gravel and rock. Yeah. Not a lot of traffic compared to our bigger players in the county,
5,000 yards is not that
much at all.
not that much.
Mr. Chair,
500 dump truck loads roughly.
seemed to draw a lot of public interest, or neighbor interest, let me put it that way.
Get off the water, exactly.
Not in our purview to,
No, it's a DNR jurisdiction, and even at 9,000 gallons a week, roughly approximately, it's under the water appropriations DNR permitting level. Like what they use for irrigators and that's at 10,000 gallons a day, is where they kind of they still have to permit the well,
Yeah,
the well committee still has to permit this well, but it's not nearly at a level like an irrigator or something like that. It's,
I seen Greg Jans's comment, you know,
That
thousand,
was shocking.
Yep.
That was a shocker.
1,000 gallons a minute.
yeah, exactly,
That was quite a comparison.
yeah.
Mr. Chair, move to approve interim use permit application number 16369 to mine, wash, and process aggregate in an A1 agricultural preservation district in part of the southeast quarter section, southeast one quarter of the southeast quarter, section 4, township 120, range 30 in the Forest City Township with conditions.
All right.
I didn't catch all that.
Oh, no.
Do we need that repeated?
I'll second it, Mr. Chair.
Corey, could you read the motion?
Great.
All right. Motion made by Johnson, second by Oberg. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next up, Whispering Hills.
Next one is the approval of final plan of Whispering Hills, property located in northeast quarter of the northwest quarter, section 27, township 119, range 29, Dassel Township, parcel 0704191010. This is a 16.7 acre parcel that, as you notice, is just outside the city limits of Dassel. The purple there is the city limits of Dassel. It's gonna be made up of 5 lots. Anywhere from lot 1's 1.38 acres, lot 2 is 4.4 acres, lot 3 is 5.87 acres, lot 4 is 1.62 acres, and lot 5 is 1.39 acres. And this was rezoned to R2 on April 2nd, 2024. Preliminary plat was passed at the same day, so this is for the final plat establishments. They recorded their plat of these 5 lots. Everything's been established as far as septic and access points and everything else for these lots, so it's been approved by the township, so.
Mr. Chair, I would move to, I don't have the, I better get the correct motion in front of me here, so I don't mess up.
Julie, you just wanna
Move-
take it since you got it in
Move to
front of you?
approve the
Oh, there
final
we go.
plat application for a 5-lot plat of Whispering Hills located in the northeast quarter of the northwest quarter of section 27, township 119, range 29 in Dassel Township.
Moved by Beth, looking for a second.
I'll second that.
Second by Julie. Any further discussion?
I'm sorry,
Yep.
Go ahead, go ahead.
are they just putting homes up or
Yeah, homes, yep.
like
Number
one,
5,
just family?
Single
residential.
family.
Residential, single-family
R2,
dwellings?
so that's residential.
Okay.
And will each of these lots be required to have their own septic
Yep.
and well?
And for the pulmonary side of it, remember, we have to have 2 locations for a septic on each lot. So backup, primary one and a backup location for each lot, it's one of the requirements to plat,
I see.
so.
Cool.
Thank you.
My question, didn't, Whispering Hills, they've done more. Is this the only plat with that? Okay, all right.
We approved the preliminary but a couple months ago, wasn't it, when we did the
April.
preliminary?
Yep, April 2nd.
That's probably why it's
you made-
familiar.
Yeah.
I've heard that
All
name
right.
before.
Yeah, I thought they were, all right,
Okay,
that's all I got.
all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Right, South Fork
The
Crow
last
River.
one I have is the approval of South Fork Crow River Comprehensive Watershed Management Plan. What that does is it puts us in with the other counties like McLeod, Renville, Meeker, Candido, and simply write the counties and their boards, commissioners, and soil water conservation districts to collaborate with the South Fork Crow River Comprehensive Watershed Management Plan. There's a draft put out for the Watershed Management Comprehensive Plan put out in January. That was just a draft, so this will go along with their final comprehensive plan.
And this plan, I'm on that committee, Mr. Chair, and Brandy had a chance to review everything that was done. So, and you have no issues with it, you said?
Correct, and it went really smooth because they hired Rinky Noon and John Kolb did the work, and so when I reviewed it, he had addressed all the issues that we've seen in other plans, so it was very well done.
I question, Paul, maybe you can, or Greg, Meeker County occupies 12.7% of jurisdictional land area, is,
Very, very southern portion.
sure,
And it is very small. We have a, well, 12%, we have a minute part. I think Carver's in there too, if I'm not mistaken. And they have just,
Yep.
you know,
Corner right here for Carver. Here's ours, right here.
yep.
so.
What I was getting at is that I take it fees and costs and as far as dollars coming in is all based off that percentage of
Well, you get so much,
jurisdictional land or,
yeah, you get so much money from Bowser to write your plan and to do the legal portion and stuff. Then it will come down to, same as you on the North Fork, it's the projects that come forward from that point. And it's mostly volunteer. Nobody's forced to do anything in a one watershed plan. But if you have a project, here's a place for folks to get a lot of financial help in getting that project done. So,
So it's not based on percentage of
okay.
land,
based on
it's based
watershed.
on.
Based on the watershed, entire watershed, so much funding per watershed, not
Okay.
necessarily per
That's-
county within
I
the
just,
watershed.
I noticed that in the notes and I was just curious how that,
when you form the plan, you kind of set priorities. All right, what are the things that we want to prioritize to look at first, and we work through from that way. So if you have a project that's on the priority list, it's going to get a lot of attention in the early stages, probably get done quicker, so.
And the more active SWCD you have, the more initiative you have to get your project on a priority list. And so those who
yep,
are active tend to get their projects done. And so money could be spent in the area where there's a smaller percentage of land.
yep, that's what I was just wondering how that,
So
follow the money a little bit and how that fits into the plan and if that's,
well, there was an issue in Ellsworth Township, just to give you an example, and we went to the North Fork through Joe Norman at SWC. And that went from being kind of a hope and a dream to someday have enough money to do the project to there's now an engineer working on getting it going, and they would not have had the money to do this project without the one watershed. So that's the kind of stuff.
so between the commissioner representing your district and the watershed and these, I mean, that's how you prioritize, that's how you're lobbying to get your projects done.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
you lobby the importance of your
Yes,
project
yes,
to the
exactly,
watershed.
yeah, exactly.
And that's how you get it on the thing.
Okay, I got you.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
I move to approve the Joint Powers Collaboration Agreement for the implementation of the Comprehensive Watershed Management Plan for the South Fork River 1W1P.
Motion made by Julie, looking for a second.
I will second that.
Second by Paul. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. You wanna take a 5-minute break and then we'll go right into the closed session?
that'll
and
be
then wait for everything else. All right, 5 minutes.
A cup of coffee here. Yeah.
So you're recording.